This conference will now be recorded.
And you guys can, go ahead and get started.
Thank you, everyone. We got some good information, I think, coming out of the governor's press conference, some additional information that I think we need to consider as we go forward and look at some decisions today. So I'm going to turn over to Chair Hall, and we'll run through the agenda.
All right, good morning, everybody. This is Claire Hall, Vice Chair of the Fair Board, calling the meeting to order as of 11 a.m. I'll let the record show that all three Fair Board members are present, that I am presiding as Vice Chair today at the request of Chair Frank Geltner, who is on the line along with Board Member Jim Beisman. First order of business is the minutes of our most recent meeting, and which was February 13th. And I noticed just now that they're dated with today's meeting date, not February 13th. Are there any additional corrections or changes in the minutes?
We're talking about the April 9th minutes, are we not?
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, okay. Yeah, I just realized I'm looking at April's agenda, I guess. So yeah, we are talking about the April 9th minutes. I'm sorry.
All right, then when I read those at the beginning, and I did send Christy an email that said that the first sentence is something to the effect that a quorum was not met, but in fact we did have a quorum.
Oh yeah, if you and I were both participating, Jim, so we should correct the record to reflect that.
Well, the minutes do reflect that we did go ahead and have a meeting and make decisions and so forth.
Right.
And I mean, we did have a quorum at the April 9th meeting, but the first sentence says a quorum was not met. But
yeah, so let's just ask that be corrected, just so there's no question or confusion.
Okay, I'll move that the April 9th meeting minutes be approved with the correction with respect to the quorum.
I'll second.
Okay, and we have motion and a second to approve. And if there are no objections, it will be so ordered. Next item of business, other business, OHU Extension 4-H Update Fair Event. Do we have anybody online from Extension?
I'm here, Claire. It's Todd.
Hi, Todd. The floor is yours.
Can everyone hear me? Obviously, you can hear me.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, what a roller coaster. We keep going back and forth, and information is slow in coming. I guess in a nutshell, to sum up my thoughts of the day, I think the lack of opportunity to get to stage 3 it shuts us down for the fair year. I was so hopeful that it wasn't going to do it. I was hopeful that we'd have a limit of 250 people and we could do some social distancing and spread things out and make it work. If we're limited to 100 people or less, I don't see that we can pull this off, at least under what I'm seeing as the current guidelines. I'm certainly willing to take any suggestions, and I wholeheartedly want to find a way to make it work, but I'm out of options, I'm afraid.
Jim Beisman here. I just listened to the governor with respect to speak to Lincoln County. We are one of the phase 1 counties. We have 6 weeks until the time the fair is scheduled. We are a phase 1 county. We have to successfully complete phase 1, which will take 3 weeks. And during that 3 weeks, we can have a maximum social distance gathered group of 25. we're only 6 weeks away from the fair. I see no way that we could have a normal fair. I mean, I agree with you, Todd. I just don't see any way we get far enough into the phases that we could social gather that many people by the July 4th weekend. So I think that part of it is really at this point pretty much a given. I would not have a problem, however, if 4-H and other people associated with the fair or fair activities wanted to do things like animal auction online, or they might even be able to gather for an animal auction if you didn't have 25. So I wouldn't object to doing some of those kinds of peripheral things around the fair, but I don't see that we can have the fair as we normally do. And lastly, I would assume that there will be no actual state fair as well. Have you heard anything there, Todd?
I haven't heard anything specific regarding State Fair. I know Marion County Fair is canceled. I expect State Fair is going to do the same. Since we got the notice, I guess it was last week, that Governor Brown said, essentially there will be no stage 3 openings until the fall at the earliest. I think her actual statement was something like until a vaccination or other preventative measures are in place. Fairs have been dropping like flies, and I think unfortunately we're at the position of having to do the same thing. Let me just speak quickly to 4-H and 4-H plans. We of course have been making plans in the eventuality that the regular fair cannot take place. And we do have an online service, Eugene Auctions, that's willing to do the auction. We will talk about doing our shows in a limited fashion with group sizes that would be appropriate. Even 25 people is sort of pushing it in many of our group settings and needs. But I will come back to you all as we solidify plans. I've got plans to meet with both my 4-H group at large, as well as the animal science people after this meeting, knowing that this was going to be sort of a decisive meeting. So yeah, we'll plan to continue to do what we are able. I think a lot of that is going to be virtual or online. Some of it may require the use of the fairgrounds, but I'll address that as we get that planning summed up. One of my huge concerns or huge misgivings, I guess, is, and I just want to make this public, our fair vendors, our stock contractors, our cowboys are suffering greatly. And one of my strongest desires is to find a way to support them in doing what we can to as we start to reopen and as the restrictions start to soften, to get events put together in support of them. A lot of those people operate on a summer season required to support them for year-round activities. And if they miss one summer, it really means that they have no income for 18 months. By the time they missed all last winter, miss a summer, and then miss all the next winter, they're suffering greatly. And I really want to try to find ways, whether that's doing a fall rodeo, doing some other event if we see that the restrictions lift more early or sooner than we expect. We can throw an ad hoc event together. I really want to support our community and our vendors in that regard. So as we see what happens and progresses, if it looks like we can do a September thing or an August thing, I'll come back and say, hey guys, let's throw this together just to make it work in support of our community. I think that's going to be an important step in getting us back to normal, even if it's a burden on us to organize something that quickly and get it put together. I think we've got to try. Enough of my soapbox. I'm as I said, I've been wrestling with emotions and information, and I would very much like to hear other people's thoughts on the matter to kind of help me process what my planning is going through.
I have a question for Mr. Belmont then. Given the circumstances, in order to keep our legal house in order, do we need a formal motion to, for instance, cancel the fair gathering, or what's the story with regard to our state fair money? Have you heard anything there? I mean, what do we need to do as a board to keep our house in order here?
That's still, as least as I know, a little bit unclear. I do know there are a number of counties who have canceled their events in total, including Benton County, Curry County. And they, if you go to their websites, their fairs are canceled in whole. Now, yeah, but I think what they're doing is I think they canceled the main event, so it's the main attractions. And what they're probably doing is something very similar to what Todd indicated. And they're holding events as they can in accordance with the guidelines that are here. What I will say that we have to be concerned about, because we've already seen this in the county, is that we get annual funding from the state of Oregon to support our fair activities through video lottery monies. The county itself has already seen our fourth quarter, which we also get a portion of that money. We've already gotten our fair money this year, but the portion of money the county gets for economic development and other purposes was sliced in half for the fourth quarter at the distribution just made. So the state swept 50% of that. I am concerned not so much on the short run as what this is going to mean for us in terms of funding for next year. So we still have to monitor that.
Okay, recognizing that the funding may decrease for these reasons and so forth, don't you think it's important that we at least go on the record and say we're canceling the gathering due to the COVID-19 emergency and officially be on the record of
my suggestion is that what you do is you cancel those events which cannot be held due to the restrictions of COVID-19 for the Lincoln County Fair. I don't think you're doing an across-the-board cancellation.
No, because we've said that, or at least I've said things like an auction, you know, an internet auction or something would be acceptable. So really the motion ought to be to cancel those fair events as required by the COVID-19 restrictions, with the proviso that certain other events, if permissible, could proceed.
That's how I would couch it.
Okay.
Todd here, just a question on wording. Is there maybe some benefit to, rather than actually canceling, saying postponing due to COVID until we can gather more information and determine what events may be able to be held as more information comes in, something to that effect. So we're not actually canceling, we're just recognizing that with our July date, it's impossible to do it at this point, but we may be able to do some events or some portions of that at a later date as more information becomes available.
We could use the wording cancel or postpone. Leave that option open.
You know, and that's a difficult one, because what you're ending up doing, and Todd, you're absolutely right, because we may be rescheduling some events is what we're doing. But I think for clarity's purposes, we need to say we're canceling those events on the date, July 14th. They're not going to occur there. We will look at rescheduling that or other events at some point in the future.
Well, actually, wouldn't we want to state it to the effect that we're canceling those events that are currently scheduled due to the COVID-19 emergency? Okay, help me here. How did we originally?
Well, you know, here's the deal. It's, you know, I think what you're really doing is you're giving the guidance to Todd right now. Number one, don't schedule anything on that date in terms of a musical event or a large event that would bring a gathering more than, and actually I would suggest you say more than 100 people at this point, because If we move into phase 2, that jumps up the 25 into 100, but still having to be socially distanced. So, that's the current criteria in phase 2. So, what you might want to do is give direction that don't schedule any event that violates the restrictions in place for the phased reopening of the state. We're going to cancel all those. And then we'll look at what we're going to do with other elements or alternatives sometime in the future.
Okay, so the motion would be to cancel or postpone all events that cannot comply with the state requirements for the COVID-19 emergency for the fair and associated events scheduled for July of 2020. Would that work, Wayne?
That works perfect.
Okay. I so move.
I second.
We have a motion and a second to cancel or postpone fair events that cannot cannot meet the current social distancing guidelines imposed by the state of Oregon. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it is unanimously approved. Anything else, Todd?
I don't have anything. Again, just that I really do want to support our community and find ways as appropriate and as new information comes out that we can support the businesses, the vendors, et cetera, that I know are suffering so badly for the past 2 months, and looks like at least some more ahead of us. So I will be bringing ideas forward to try to support them as we see some guidelines that make those sorts of things possibilities.
I think we've done that to the broadest extent possible in saying that the only thing that we are not going to do are those things that will not fall within the state's guidelines. And in addition, we're willing to postpone until later in the year some events. I don't know how we could do it any more broadly than we currently just did.
You did.
I agree with you, Jim, and I guess what I'm saying is thank you, and expect some ideas coming forward as some of those doors start to open. I appreciate that.
Okay, so any further discussion? Then
This is Heather.
Yes.
This is Heather. I just have a quick question. Some of the vendors that I've reached out to that have canceled are requesting refunds. Is that something we're going to do? It does say in our fair book that once they make the deposit, it's non-refundable, but I'm having some of those questions come up, and I just kind of want some clarity on that.
My suggestion is that is a Fair Board made policy, and you can change that. And we are doing a number of things that are just in general for areas in which people have paid licenses or prepaid monies, that we're trying to return that if they can't physically come to the event by no fault of their own.
All right, a couple of quick questions. First, how much are they required to deposit?
It varies on their booth size. It's anywhere from $350 to $50.
All right, second, have we incurred any expenses associated with them putting in their advanced deposits and so forth? Have we spent any of that money on any particular costs of our own to date?
Not that I'm aware of, but Todd might be able to answer that better than I can.
Only on Heather's labor, Jim. We bill for some of that labor, and obviously we've all been working towards having a fair, so there is some labor expense, but I would suggest it's prudent to make an exception and refund that in its entirety. I think that's a great show of good faith. Again, these vendors are suffering horribly, and probably a lot of fairs are not going to refund deposits. I think if we could, it would go a long ways towards helping.
Well, I think the staff time is given. I mean, we haven't bought, for instance, I don't know, chairs or, we haven't actually expended any hard money that we've taken in deposit, correct?
We have not. That's correct.
All right. I'd move that we refund to the various vendors their deposit in full for the event previously scheduled for July of 2020.
I'll second that motion.
Motion and a second to approve refunds to vendors. And is there further discussion? Not.
Wayne, you okay with that?
I'm sorry?
I wondered if Wayne was okay with that.
I am fine. And Heather, as you prepare stuff for us to sign, we'll just note that it's pursuant to an order of the Fair Board.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
And in case it wasn't clear, I'm made the motion only for the event scheduled for 2020. It only applies to this year at the moment.
Okay, so all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, it is so ordered. Do we have a county staff update?
Focus is out of the floral building, and that's all we have.
One of the benefits to everything being closed up is we've accomplished quite a few repairs over there. We've replaced 4 doors. We're repairing the Focus building now. We're going to do some roof work on the exhibit hall, and we're finally getting the crops mowed down with or without rain. Other than that, no, nothing else.
Okay. Anything else from staff? Anything else for the good of the order?
I have a question.
Okay, Frank.
Is there anything that the building could be used for while it's empty that is on the horizon?
Actually, this is Wayne. We are using it right now. It's actually being used as part of our COVID response.
Okay.
We're actually storing some foodstuffs. I'm not sure it's in the exhibition building, but we're assisting Food Share with some of the storage that they need on an interim basis in response to the COVID, our response to the COVID crisis. And we have made available, part of our advanced planning was looking at facilities at the commons, what they could be used for, if needed, for instance, for isolation, for housing, that kind of stuff related to any surges and populations that the hospital couldn't handle. So it was very interesting and important to have these kinds of facilities in our back pocket, so to speak, as we were developing all the necessary plans for responding to the COVID epidemic.
I guess
Thank
it
you.
goes without saying that the Fair Board approves any usage of the commons facilities and structures as may be needed by the county to facilitate the virus response. Anybody disagree with that?
Nope.
Wayne, do we have
Folks,
to approve that?
You know, if we were going to have any specific uses, we would have informed the Fair Board and made sure there was a consent to do that. Although I guess we really didn't do that with the Food Share. They're in a portion of the building. I know we were aware of that, but I appreciate having that information available. We need to know that. That's fantastic.
Was there any reason why can't we just make a motion to do that on a go forward basis and then
That's great.
do whatever you need to do?
That's fantastic. That would help.
I'll second that motion.
Go ahead, Frank.
No, I just say I'll second what you just said.
Okay. I don't know if I remember what I just said, but okay. It's on
Discussion on the motion. Okay, I'll call for a vote then. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, then it looks like we're there. Anything else for the good of the order?
Regarding facilities use, from the 4-H standpoint, we've at this point been displaced from the Harney building, and it hasn't been a problem because the university and 4-H has been on hold. But we are starting to implement our reopening plan, and as we start looking at virtual shows, other gatherings, I think there's going to be a resurgence and a need maybe for even more space than what just the Harney building provided. And as I said, we're not current. We've vacated that at this point. But between summer camp offerings, which the governor just approved, and event shows that we're trying to make up, and other virtual offerings, it may be that we need more space. We had originally talked about in our redevelopment plan moving 4-H to the Focus building when that became available. And this may not be the time to talk about that, but I guess I'm trying to figure out where 4-H activities will take place. I don't know how long Harney will be tied up. I don't know how long the Focus building, the floral building, it is tied up with food share stuff. I guess I'm just asking to have that on the radar. And it may be that I have requests to use that prior to our next Fair Board meeting as the university and 4-H ramps back up.
I think the real intent of the motion was to give the county through Mr. Belmont and really the Board of Commissioners, they don't have to come back to us each time they want to do something out there on the grounds with the structures. They just have blanket authority as far as Fair Board is concerned to proceed. I think that is with the understanding that Mr. Belmont will coordinate with 4-H and others as may be necessary. This reopening thing is, frankly, we're going to wind up winging a lot of it. Todd, I think you and Wayne talked about the 4-H and the county's needs and so forth, and together with Amy on the scheduling, whatever it is, so you do what you need to do.
We certainly can.
We will.
Okay, anything else for the good of the order?
What about a press release for the cancellation / postponement? We can certainly notify our vendors, but we probably need to get that information out to the public as well.
Todd, can I have you?
Casey can't prepare that for us.
I was going to say, have you work with Casey, and I'll then review it with you guys, and we'll get some language together and get something out.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay, anything else? Going once, going twice, going 3 times. I will declare the Lincoln County Fair Board meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank